The door to O'Malley's swung open with a gust of October chill that cut through the stale smoke and spilled regrets like a knife through fog. Rain-slicked boots tracked Manhattan grit across the threshold. And there he was, Alexander Hale. The alpha whose name whispered through high society whispers like a curse wrapped in silk. He scanned the room with those predator eyes, hunting for the soft curves and honeyed scents of omegas who'd melt under his command. But fate, that cruel bastard, had other plans. His gaze locked on me. Stephen Reyes. The beta slinging drinks behind a bar scarred worse than my heart. I'd seen his type 1,000 times. Wall Street wolves in bespoke suits, chasing the thrill of submission they could never find in their boardroom empires. But Alex, he didn't just enter. He claimed the space, his presence thickening the air like the first rumble of thunder. Our eyes met, and in that split second, I felt the pull, not the sweet surrender of an omega's heat, but something sharper, a bitter edge that promised to slice us both open. By the time his fingers brushed mine over the rim of a tumbler, the bar had emptied to ghosts, and I knew this wasn't just another pour. This was the storm I'd been brewing for years, ready to drown us both. The whiskey burned smooth down his throat, but it was my voice that made him pause, gravelly from too many late nights and unspoken aches. Rough one out there? I asked, wiping down the counter with a rag that had seen better days. Alex leaned in, his cologne a subtle invasion of cedar and storm. Alpha pheromones curling like smoke signals I had no business reading. At 32, I'd long since armored myself against that pool bettas like me didn't get the fairy tale, just the footnotes. My ex, Jamie, had taught me that the hard way, a sweet omega who'd chosen the heat of an alpha's not over my steady hands, leaving me with a tattoo of his name faded on my ribs and a bitterness that seasoned every drink I served. Every night in this city feels like a war, Alex replied, his voice low, laced with the kind of exhaustion that money couldn't buy. 35 and already carrying the weight of Hale Enterprises on shoulders broad enough to eclipse the skyline. His family legacy demanded heirs, demanded the perfect omega match to parade at galas. But tonight, those blue eyes weren't scanning for pedigrees. They were devouring meth, faint scar on my knuckle from a shattered bottle, the way my shirt clung to sweat-damp skin after a 12-hour shift. You look like you fought a few yourself. I chuckled, bitter as the dregs in his glass. Fought and lost. Mostly. Refill. He nodded, and as I poured, our fingers tangled just enough to spark electric. Forbidden. In the omegaverse of New York's underbelly, alphas chased omegas like prey. But betas, we were the ghosts in the machine, useful until we weren't. Yet here was Alex, lingering when the last stragglers stumbled out, his gaze stripping away my defenses layer by layer. We talked, or rather, he confessed, words tumbling like the rain outside. His latest omega fling, a perfumed socialite named Lila, had ghosted him after one too many accidental heats that left her clawing for more than his title. They all want the fantasy, he said, swirling the amber liquid. The knot, the claim, the white picket fence in the Hamptons. But me, I'm just the vessel. His laugh was hollow, echoing the ache I knew too well. I'd lost Jamie to that same siren call 3 years ago, walking in on him arched under some golden boy alpha in our Brooklyn walk-up. The betrayal had curdled something in me, turning sweetness to ash. You're not a vessel, I shot back, surprising us both. You're the storm they can't weather. The words hung heavy, charged, and for a heartbeat, the bar shrank to just Ushy's heat bleeding through the air, my pulse hammering against ribs that suddenly felt too tight. He reached across, thumb tracing the vein on my wrist, and I didn't pull away. Not then. Dawn crept in like a thief, painting the windows gold, and Alex left with my number scrawled on a napkin, promising just coffee. Lies. Both of us knew. But the city hummed with possibility as I locked up. The echo of his touch lingering like a bruise I wanted to press. The coffee shop on Bleecker Street was a neutral ground. All exposed brick and overpriced lattes. But when Alex slid into the booth across from me 2 days later, it felt like stepping into a minefield. His suit was traded for jeans that hugged his thighs like a second skin. A simple Henley straining against his chest alpha casual, designed to disarm. "You came," he said, that smirk curling like smoke. But his eyes betrayed the hunger, the uncertainty. At 35, he'd conquered mergers and markets. Yet here he was, fidgeting with a sugar packet like a kid on his first date. Why wouldn't I? I lied, stirring my black coffee, strong enough to strip paint. Truth was, I'd spent those 48 hours replaying every glance, every brush of skin, my beta blood running hot in ways it shouldn't. Omega's got the biology textbooks the heats. The bonds but betas like me. We got the what-ifs. The almost that festered. Still, Alex's presence was a drug, pulling me under despite the warning bells. We talked boardrooms and bar tabs, his world of penthouses clashing with my dive bar reality. But beneath it simmered the real current, his endless parade of omegas, each sweeter than the last. None sticking because they saw the cage in his crown. My father's dying wish, he admitted over cooling mugs, voice cracking just once. An omega heir to seal the dynasty. Lila was closed soft, pliant, but she bolted when I wouldn't suppress my ruts for her schedule. His fist clenched, knuckles white, and I saw the fracture. The alpha who commanded empires but couldn't command his own heart. I leaned forward, the table a flimsy barrier. And you? What do you want? Alex. Not the script. My words were a challenge, laced with the bitterness of my own scars, Jamie's ghost still whispering that I wasn't enough. Never sweet enough to hold. But Alex's gaze darkened, pheromones thickening the air until my skin prickled. A beta's poor imitation of heat flushing my cheeks. You. He breathed. Simple as that. And the world tilted. His hand covered mine, warm and insistent, thumbs circling in a rhythm that echoed lower, deeper. We spilled out onto the street, the village alive with autumn leaves skittering like secrets. And when he backed me against the cool brick of an alley wall, his mouth crashed into mine, not gentle, not sweet, but devouring, all teeth and tongue and the raw edge of need. It was messy, urgent, his hands fisting my shirt, my fingers tangling in his hair as rain started again, slicking us both. No omega softness here, just the grind of bodies that fit wrong and right all at once. His growl vibrating against my throat as I nipped his lip hard enough to draw copper. Stephen, he gasped, pulling back just enough to search my face. Eyes wild. This? You're not. Beta. I finished, breath ragged, shoving down the fear clawing up. And you're an alpha chasing shadows. Walk away now, or we burn. But he didn't. He kissed me again, slower this time, mapping the hurt in my exhale. And for the first time in years, the bitterness receded, leaving room for something dangerously close to hope. That night, he took me to his Soho loft, a sprawl of glass and steel overlooking the Hudson. Minimalist lines that screamed control. We didn't make it past the foyer, clothes shed like inhibitions, his body pinning mine to the marble floor. All hard planes and fevered skin. Alphas and betas didn't bond like that, no faded pull. No claiming bite, but as he moved inside me, deliberate and deep, it felt like rewriting the rules. His ruts were legendarily brutal. But with me, he held back just enough, letting me set the pace, my nails raking red trails down his back as I chased the edge. After, tangled in sheets that smelled of us, he traced the tattoo on my ribs, Jamie's name. A relic. Tell me, he murmured, voice husky from cries that still echoed. I did. The words spilling like the whiskey I'd poured him that first night, the betrayal. The nights I drowned in bottles behind the bar, vowing never to let an alpha close again. He listened, alpha's stillness masking the storm, then pressed lips to the ink. He was blind. You're the fire I didn't know I needed. But dawn brought reality crashing back. A text from his assistant, board meeting, then dinner with potential Omega matches. His face shuddered, the vulnerability slamming shut like a vault. This doesn't change anything, he said, dressing with mechanical precision. The family. They expect. I know. I cut in, pulling on my jeans. The ache blooming fresh. Sweet Omegas for the air. I'm just the nightcap. He flinched, reaching for me. But I was already at the door. The city's hum mocking us. Call if you need another pour. He didn't call that day. Or the next. O'Malley's filled with the usual suspects, tired suits nursing hangovers, but the bar felt emptier. My hands shaking as I mixed drinks that tasted like ash. Whispers filtered in from the TV above. Hale Enterprises stock dipping. Rumors of Alex's instability after a heated family council. By Friday, he stormed back in, soaked from a downpour, eyes bloodshot and feral. They're pushing Lilo again, he snarled, slamming a fist on the bar that made glasses rattle, parading her like a prize, sense and all, while father's lawyers circle like vultures. The bar was half empty, but eyes turned to alphas sensing weakness, Omegas preening in corners. I poured him a double. Neat. And when his hand shook taking it, I covered it with mine. Then fight dirty, I said, voice low, the hook of our first night reeling him back. Or let them win. His gaze snapped to mine, the alpha fire reigniting. And before I could blink, he vaulted the bar, hauling me into the stockroom where crates loomed like witnesses. We collided against shelves, bottles clinking perilously, his mouth claiming mine with desperate fury. No words this time, just the rip of zippers, the slap of skin, his rut cresting hot and unchecked as I wrapped legs around him, meeting every thrust with my own bitter rhythm. It was cathartic, punishing sweat and salt and the raw unraveling of walls we'd both built too high. When he came undone, not swelling just enough to blur the lines, I followed, whispering his name like a curse broken, panting in the dim afterglow, surrounded by the scent of spilled bourbon. He cupped my face. I can't do sweet anymore, Stephen. Not when this you feels like coming home. Weeks blurred into a secret rhythm, our stolen hours a defiance against the city's relentless grind. Mornings after shifts, I'd slip into his loft, the Hudson glittering like a promise below, and we'd lose ourselves in sheets that grew rumpled with use. Alex was a revelation, gentle in ways alphas weren't supposed to be, mapping my body with reverent hands, learning the spots that made me arch without the crutch of heats or scents. You're real, he'd murmur against my collarbone, breath hot, as if the confession alone could ward off the encroaching shadows. But shadows they were, lengthening with every missed call from his mother, every gala invite laced with Omega undertones. I kept my distance during the days, slinging drinks at O'Malley's where the regulars ribbed me about my glow, Jimmy the cook winking over greasy hash, Maria the waitress nudging my ribs with tales of her own mismatched heart. At 32, I'd convinced myself betas were built for solitude, our bonds fraying where alphas and omegas fused like steel. Yet Alex chipped away at that. Texts popping mid-shift, miss your bite. Dinner. Followed by photos of takeout from that hole-in-the-wall taqueria in the East Village, evoking memories of my abuela's kitchen before she passed. Her stories of love that defied labels. One crisp November evening, he surprised me at the bar's close, bundled in a wool coat that did nothing to hide the tension in his jaw. Escaping. I teased, locking the door behind us, the neon sign buzzing its farewell. But his smile was tight, eyes scanning the empty street like it held spies. Family dinner at the estate, he said, pulling me into the alley where our first real kiss had ignited. They're unveiling the shortlist 5 Omegas. All pedigreed perfection. His voice dripped sarcasm, but the hurt beneath twisted like a knife. I hated it. This glimpse of the boy he'd been before the empire swallowed him whole, sent to boarding schools at 10. Groomed for knots and contracts by 14. Then go, I said, forcing lightness, though my chest ached. Charm them with that alpha grin. Save the rebellion for me. He laughed, low and broken, then kissed me fierce, backing me against the brick until my lungs burned for air. His hands roamed, possessive yet tender, slipping under my jacket to trace the tattoo that still bore Jamie's shadow. You're mine tonight, he growled, nipping my ear, and we tumbled into a cab. Destination his place. The driver wisely ignoring the fogged windows. That night was fevered, boundaries dissolving in the loft's vast bed. He took his time, worshipping with mouth and fingers, drawing out gasps I'd buried deep. No, not this time, he held back, letting me lead, my body claiming his in ways that blurred alpha and beta into something sacred. Afterward, as rain lashed the panes, he confessed more, the pressure of his father's illness. Stage 4 now. Lungs ravaged by decades of cigars and cutthroat deals. He wants me settled before it's too late. Lila's back in the fold, whispering about fresh starts. Jealousy spiked. Hot and irrational Lila, with her silken heats and society polish. The antithesis of my rough edges. I rolled away, staring at the ceiling's exposed beams. And you, still chasing sweet. The words tasted like vinegar, dredging up Jamie's abandonment. The way he'd scented another before our bed had even cooled. Alex's arm banded around my waist, pulling me flush. Sweet bores me. You challenge. You burn. You stay when it hurts. His lips brushed my shoulder. A vow in the dark. I told them no tonight. Walked out mid-toast. Relief flooded, mingled with terror. Defying the Hales wasn't a game. It was corporate warfare. Whispers of disinheritance already circulating in tabloids. Heir to Hale, empire spurns tradition for what? The headlines would scream if they knew. But in that cocoon, with his heartbeat sinking to mine, the world felt conquerable. The next morning shattered it. His phone exploded with voicemail smother's icicle tone. Lawyers clipped threats. Lila's honeyed pleas masked as concern. He silenced it. But the damage lingered. A pall over our coffee. I need to handle this, he said, dressing with that mechanical click. But tonight dinner at my abuela's old spot. Real food. No empires. I nodded, throat tight, and watched him go. The door's click echoing like a gavel. O'Malley's That Shift was a blur of rowdy finance bros and heartbroken Omega's nursing cosmos. Their scents cloying the air. Maria cornered me during lull. Eyes sharp. That alpha's trouble. Stevie. The kind that leaves bite marks on your soul. She wasn't wrong. Alex had already marked me. Invisible brands that throbbed with every pore. By closing, my phone lit up, not Alex, but an unknown. We need to talk. Lila. Meet me at the Velvet Rope. 11 p.m. It's about him. Curiosity warred with dread. But I went. The upscale lounge in Midtown, a glittering cage of velvet booths and crystal chandeliers. Lila waited in a corner. Elegance personified 28. Omega curves draped in emerald silk. Her perfume a subtle siren call that turned heads. You're not what I expected, she said, voice smooth as aged scotch, gesturing to the seat opposite. No venom, just assessment. Her heat scent muted but potent. Alex speaks of you in fragments reel. He calls it. But betas don't fit the puzzle. I bristled, ordering a gin neat to steady. And you? Still fitting pieces for the hail frame. Petty. But her laugh was genuine. Disarming. I loved him once. Truly. But he needs more than sweet submission, needs fire to temper the steel. She slid a photo across, Alex. Younger. Arm around her at a gala. Eyes distant even then. I'm out. Stephen. For good. But the family's circling. If you want him. Fight like hell. Her words landed like a gut punch. Alliance unexpected. As I left, rain-slick streets reflecting neon lies. My resolve hardened. Alex wasn't a prize. He was a man. Flawed and fierce. And I'd be damned if I'd let tradition steal him. He was waiting at the taqueria when I arrived. Candlelight flickering over carnitas and memories. Rough day? He asked, pulling me close, oblivious to the storm brewing. You have no idea. I murmured, kissing him deep, tasting the future we might steal. December's bite sharpened the city's edges, frost etching the bar's windows like accusations. But our secret burned brighter, a defiant flame against the cold. Alex carved out pockets of normalcy lazy Sundays in my cramped Brooklyn apartment, where we'd cooked disastrous empanadas from my abuela's recipes, flour-dusted and laughing as smoke alarms wailed. His alpha stature dwarfed the space, broad frame folding onto my sagging couch, head in my lap as I carted fingers through his hair. The TV droning holiday specials neither of us watched. You're spoiling me, he'd grumble, nuzzling my thigh, voice muffled. But his eyes sparkled with a freedom I'd glimpsed only in stolen moments. At 35, the weight of expectation had etched lines around his mouth. But with me, they softened, his rut cycles sinking to tender rhythms rather than the brutal isolation he'd known before. Yet the hails loomed, insidious as the holiday cheer that mocked us. Invites piled up Christmas Eve at the estate. New Year's galas where Omega prospects glittered like tinsel. Alex deflected with excuses, flu, travel, mergers that demanded his soul. But cracks showed. He'd pace my kitchen at 3 a.m. Phone clutched like a grenade. Voicemails from his mother slicing the air. Alexander. This rebellion dishonors your father. Lila is willing to throw away your legacy for. Whatever this is. I'd pull him back to bed, bodies entwining in silent protest, my hands mapping the tension from his shoulders, coaxing groans that echoed deeper needs. Sex with him was a language unto itself, no Omega's yielding grace, but a dance of equals. My beta strength meeting his alpha power in clashes that left us breathless. Marked. One night, as snow blanketed the fire escape, he pinned me to the mattress. Thrusts deliberate. Eyes locked. Say it. He demanded. Voice ragged. Not teasing without fully locking a deliberate tease that drove me wild. I love you. I gasped. The words tearing free. Raw and unbidden. His rhythm faltered. Then surged, burying his face in my neck as release claimed us both. Love. The word hung. Terrifying in its truth. A beta's quiet anchor against the alpha storm. Christmas morning found us tangled in his loft. The tree he'd insisted own a monstrosity of ornaments and lights casting rainbows over bare skin. Gifts exchanged, a leather-bound journal from him for my half-scribbled poetry. A vintage watch from me, engraved with bitter to better. We made love by the window. City awakening below. His body shielding mine from the world's prying eyes. But paradise fractured that afternoon. A knock echoed insistent. Ominous. His mother, Victoria Hale, swept in like a dowager queen. Fur coat shedding snow. Her beta poise a blade honed by decades of boardroom battles. At 60, she was steel-willed. Eyes the same piercing blue as her son's. now narrowed on me in rumpled sweats. Coffee mug in hand. Alexander, she said, voice arctic, ignoring me entirely. Your father's rallied enough for one last council. Be there by dusk, or the lawyers move without you. Her gaze flicked to me then, dismissive, and bring no distractions. The door clicked shut, leaving frost in its wake. Alex's face drained of color, shoulders slumping under the invisible yoke. I have to go, he whispered, apology in every line. Just to appease. Go, I said, forcing steel into my spine, though my heart hammered betrayal's old tune. But come back. To me. He nodded, kissing me fierce. A promise sealed in salt and urgency. O'Malley's that night was a madhouse holiday, drunks slurring carols, tips flowing like eggnog. I poured with mechanical fury, Maria's concerned glances sliding off as I replayed Victoria's disdain. Betas were invisible to her world, useful for service but never substance. By midnight, my phone buzzed, counsel's a bloodbath. Lila's there, playing martyr. Need you. I bolted, cab racing through snow-laced streets to the Hale estate on the Upper East Side, Beaux-Arts behemoth. Gates yawning like jaws. Slipping past security with a fabricated delivery lie. I found the library ablaze with crystal and tension. Voices thundered, his father, gaunt in a wheelchair, rasping demands for legacy. Victoria, orchestrating like a conductor. Lila, tear-streaked in crimson velvet, clutching Alex's arm as if owned. He shook her off, spotting me in the shadows, eyes widening in shock and relief. Stephen. The room froze, sense spiking omega distress. Alpha fury. Who is this? Victoria demanded, rising like a specter. A friend. Alex lied, but his hand found mine. Grip iron. More than that. The one who matters. Chaos erupted, accusations flying. Lila's sobs, artifice crumbling to venom. A beta. You'll ruin us all. His father wheezed laughter. Bitter. Always the contrarian. Boy. But bloodlines. Screw bloodlines. Alex roared. Alpha command shaking the chandelier. I've chased your sweet omegas. Father. Nodded and claimed as scripted. But Steven sees me. Not the throne. And I love him. The words detonated. Room spinning into stunned silence. Victoria's face cracked. Just once grief for the son she'd molded too tight. Think of the empire. She pleaded. Softer now. I am. Alex countered, pulling me forward. Our fingers laced defiant. Building one worth having. We fled into the night. Estate lights receding like dying stars. Snow muffling our breaths. In the limo he'd commandeered. He crushed me close. Mouth devouring doubts. You came for me. He marveled. Hands frantic. Peeling layers until skin met skin on leather seats. Always. I vowed. Straddling him. Rhythm building as the city blurred past. No hesitation. Just us raw. Real. Unbreakable. January's thaw brought no mercy. The city's slush mirroring the mess we'd waded into. Headlines screamed from newsstands. Hale Air's scandalous Stan Beta lover shocks elite. Paparazzi swarmed O'Malley's. Flashes popping like gunfire. Turning my sanctuary into a circus. Regulars grumbled but stayed loyal. Jimmy fortifying the door with a glare that could curdle milk. While Maria slipped me burner phones for sanity's sake. Alex weathered it with boardroom armor. But cracks showed in private nights when he'd arrive at my apartment hollow-eyed from depositions. Lawyers circling like sharks over his irresponsible liaison. Their freezing assets. He'd confess. Stripping down to vulnerabilities. Body curling into mine on the narrow bed. At 35, his alpha pride chafed against the humiliation. Ruts flaring volatile without suppressants he refused now, claiming they dulled us. I'd soothe him then, hands steady on fevered skin, guiding him through the storm with touches that grounded. Our love was a rebellion. Fierce and unscripted mornings tangled in sunlight. His head on my chest as I read aloud from that journal. Verses born of our chaos. You're my anchor, he'd murmur, fingers tracing my tattoo, now overlaid with his own mark, a small, discreet A inked beside Jamie's faded name. A quiet reclamation. But Lila's shadow lingered. Her martyr act morphing into calculated strikes. Anonymous leaks painted me as a gold-digging opportunist. Tabloids digging into my pastabela's immigrant struggles. My dead-end bartending. The assault charge from a bar fight years back when I defended a harassed Omega. Lies twisted truths. But the sting landed, whispers at the bar. Customers eyeing me with pity or scorn. One blizzard-ravaged night. As wind howled off the East River, Lila cornered me outside O'Malley's. Her coat a white flag in the flurry. No tears this time, just resolve. Omega fire banked, but burning. I meant what I said. She called over the gale, stepping close enough for her scent to tease. A deliberate ploy that made my beta instincts prickle. But he's slipping. Stephen. The board's voting tomorrow oust him if he won't wed traditionally. Icy dread coiled. Why tell me? Isn't this your in? She laughed. Brittle. Because I know heartbreaks bite. And because he chose you not sweet. But true. She thrust a USB drive into my gloved hand. Evidence. Father's embezzlement. Board kickbacks. Use it. Or lose him. I pocketed it. Storming home through drifts. Mind racing. Alex arrived hours later. Snow-caked and shattered. Collapsing into my arms with a sob that rent the air. They've got petitions disinheritance if I don't comply. Lila's testifying. Spinning tales of my instability. The USB burned in my pocket like contraband. Then we fight, I said, cupping his face. Thumbs brushing tears. With everything. We made love that night like warriors slow. Deliberate. His body yielding to mine in rare submission. Not pulsing but held. A trust that shattered me. Afterward. In the quiet. I showed him the drive. Her words. The evidence unfolding on my laptop like Pandora's arsenal. His eyes blazed. Alpha resolve reigniting. You do this. Risk it all for us. For you. I corrected. Kissing his knuckles. Bitter to the end. Dawn broke with strategy sessions over cold pizza. Alex's calls to allies loyal execs. Estranged cousins who trickled in with intel. By noon, we were en route to the Hale Tower. A monolith of glass and greed piercing the gray sky. Security parted like the Red Sea under his command. But the boardroom was a coliseum, Victoria at the head. Stern in pearls. His father absent. Too frail. Lila flanking lawyers with doe-eyed innocence. Alex entered like thunder. Me at his side uninvited. Unyielding. Let's end the charade. He declared. Voice booming. Slamming the drive into the projector. Files bloomed, falsified ledgers. Offshore accounts. His father's signature on fraud that could topple empires. Gasps rippled. Victoria paled. Hand fluttering to her throat. Alexander. This is treason. It's truth. He countered. Arm around my waist. Claiming me before them all. And my terms, I stay CEO. With Stephen as my partner. No Omegas. No heirs by script. Or it all burns. Lila rose. Voice steady. I corroborate. For the man who deserves better than cages. Her alliance sealed it, betrayal flipped to redemption. Board fracturing under the weight. Victoria's gaze met mine. Assessing. Then softening infinitesimally. You've awakened him. She conceded. Voice a whisper. Don't squander it. We left Victor's elevator descent, a blur of his mouth on mine. Triumphant and tender. Outside, paparazzi frenzy met us. But Alex shielded, hailing a cab to freedom. Home, he said. Address mine, Brooklyn's heart over Soho's heights. That night, under a quilt stitched by Abuela's hands, we celebrated quietly, wine from dusty bottles, bodies joining in unhurried worship. His knot finally locked, deep in binding, a beta's miracle born of love, sealing us in waves that crested endless. Spring's bloom crept into the city like a hesitant lover. Cherry blossoms dusting Central Park paths where Alex and I walked hand in hand, defying stares with the ease of survivors. The scandal had crested and crashed. Hale Enterprises stabilizing under his iron reforms, ethical audits. Diverse boards that included betas like me in advisory whispers. Victoria thawed by degrees. Luncheon invites laced with reluctant warmth. Her stories of young love mirroring our own jagged path. But peace was fragile. Ghosts stirring in quiet moments. My tattoo itched under shirts. Jamie's name a specter Alex never questioned, though his fingers lingered there. Soothing. At 32, I'd rebuilt walls only to watch them crumble. Vulnerability, a double-edged blade. Nights at O'Malley's. As I poured for a crowd that now included curious alphas and emboldened omegas. Doubt whispered, was I enough? Long-term. No heats to bind. No sweet submission to soothe his ruts. Alex sensed it, pulling me from shifts to rooftop gardens where Manhattan sprawled like a conquered map. Marry me, he said one twilight. April sun gilding his face. A simple band glinting in his palm, platinum, etched with intertwined flames. No grand gesture. Just us. The proposal raw as our first clash. Tears pricked. Unbidden. A beta and an alpha. The world. Screw the world. He echoed my barroom vow. Slipping the ring on. Cool metal warming to promise. You're my world. We sealed it there. Against the parapet. City symphony below as his body arched into mine. Slow thrusts sinking to heartbeats. Not swelling in affirmation. Wedding whispers spread. A small affair planned for June, Brooklyn courthouse. Then a reception at O'Malley's. Jimmy catering with flair. Lila even RSVP'd. Her Omega Grace turned ally. Dating a beta artist who'd captured her fire. But as vows loomed, my pass clawed back. A letter arrived. Forwarded from an old address, Jamie's handwriting. Shaky. Stephen. Saw the news. Congrats. Or pity. I was wrong. But you're still chasing alphas to prove something. Be happy. Or Don-tire bitterness suits you. The words festered. Doubt blooming like weeds. I hid it. But Alex found the crumpled paper in my jacket. Confrontation igniting over dinner takeout tie in his loft. Now ours half the time. Why didn't you tell me? He demanded. Voice edged. Alpha temper flaring brief before hurt softened it. Because it's old poison. I snapped, shoving back from the table. And you're not him, you read better. But what if I'm not? What if the novelty wears? And you crave sweet again? He crossed to me in 2 strides. Hands framing my face. Eyes fierce. Novelty. Stephen, you're the antidote to every hollow knot I've chased. Bitter. Yes, honest. Deep. The flavor that lingers. His kiss was argument and absolution. Backing me to the wall. Clothes shedding in fervent pulls. We moved to the bedroom. His dominance yielding to my lead. Me atop. Setting a punishing rhythm that drew growls from his throat. When release hit, not locking us in prolonged bliss, he whispered against sweat-slick skin, "Marry me still." Yes, I breathed. The ghost exorcised in his arms. June arrived sweltering. Courthouse steps alive with our mismatched tribe, Maria as witness. Jimmy grumbling blessings. Victoria in understated Chanel. Her nod to me, almost maternal. Vows exchanged simple. Searing, in bitterness and fire. I choose you. Rings slid on. Sealing fates. The reception at O'Malley's was legend bar transformed with fairy lights, and Abuela's recipes catered fresh. Laughter drowning old regrets. Alex pulled me to the tiny dance floor. Body swaying to a playlist of our making gritty indie mixed with salsa beats. To forgetting them all. He toasted later. Glasses clinking amid cheers. But fate, ever the trickster, tested on our honeymoon a secluded cabin in the Catskills. Escape from city glare. Midway through a hike. His phone buzzed, father's passing. Sudden, but not unexpected. Grief hit like a freight train. Alex crumbling on the trail. Alpha facade shattering into sobs that racked his frame. I held him there. Under pines whispering condolences. Rocking as darkness fell. He never understood. He choked. Face buried in my shirt. But you do. You always have. We returned changed. Eulogy delivered with me at his side. Victoria's hand squeezing mine in silent thanks. The empire mourned. But we endured. Love the true inheritance. Summer's haze thickened into autumn's resolve. Our first anniversary marked not with fanfare, but quiet ritual, recreating that first night at O'Malley's. Me behind the bar in the empty space. Pouring whiskey neat as he watched from his stool. Eyes alight with memory. At 33 now. The bitterness had mellowed in me. Transmuted by time and touch into a wry wisdom that drew people patrons sharing stories over drinks. Alphas seeking advice on bonds beyond biology. Alex thrived too. Reforms blooming. Hail initiatives for LGBTQ plus rights. Scholarships for beta entrepreneurs. Lila heading a wing for Omega autonomy. Victoria retreated to Europe. Letters arriving scented with lavender. Hints of pride peeking through propriety. You've given him roots. One read. Postscript, and perhaps me a chance to replant. But scars lingered. Subtle fractures testing our steel. A rut hit Alex hard that October. Unannounced and vicious. Pheromones flooding the loft until air crackled. I was an Omega sweet to ease it. My presence grounded but didn't soothe the primal edge. He paced. Sweat slick. Eyes feral. Until control snappied pinned me to the kitchen island. Thrust brutal. Not demanding entry, I granted with gritted teeth. Pain mingling ecstasy in a haze that left us trembling. After. Guilt carved his face. I hurt you. He whispered. Bandaging a bruise on my hip with hands that shook. You needed me. I countered. Pulling him close. All of me. We're not scripted real. It became our mantra. Therapy sessions unpacking alpha-beta dynamics. Learning to navigate without shame. Winter brought unexpected bloom, a pregnancy scare. False alarm from my flu shot side effects. But it cracked open dreams deferred. Kids. He mused one snowy evening. Fire crackling as we lounged. His head on my lap. Adoption. Surrogacy whatever path. The idea terrified and thrilled. Visions of tiny hands in ours. Teaching resilience over legacy. We dove in. Paperwork mountains climbed together. Home studies passed with our love as the anchor. Spring 2027 unfurled with approval, a toddler. 5-year-old Luca. Omega boy with wide eyes and a laugh like bells. Placed with us from foster limbo. His first days were chaos nights of nightmares. Days of tentative trust. Alex, the boardroom titan, melted into diaper changes and bedtime stories. His alpha protectiveness a gentle shield. I taught Luca pours soda. Mocktails. His giggles echoing my abuela's kitchen. But integration Jared, Luca's heats loomed distant. Omega needs clashing my beta steadiness. One night, as he wailed from a fever dream, sensed spiking distress. Alex nodded a pillow in futile rut echo. Frustration boiling. What if I'm not enough for him? He confessed later. Luca asleep between us. You're everything. I soothed. Hand over his on the boy's curls. We both are bitter balance to sweet storms. Luca's adoption finalized in June. Our family sealed in a courtroom echo of our vows. Park picnics became ritual. His chatter bridging our world's alpha games with Alex. Story hours with me. Victoria visited, cooing over him with uncharacteristic softness, gifting a silver rattle engraved Hail Reyes. Yet drama shadowed, a rival firm. Sniffing weakness. Launched a takeover bid. Board fracturing anew. Sleepless nights strategized over Luca's crayons. Alex's resolve stealing. We fight as one. He vowed. And we did alliances forged. Lila testifying again. Turning tide. Victory party at O'Malley's doubled as Luca's birthday. Bar alive with toasts. As cake smeared his face, Alex pulled me aside. Eyes shining. You made me forget the Malamigas. Empires. Doubts. For this. Our kiss tasted of frosting and forever. Luca's tug at our legs the sweetest interruption. Years wove us tighter. The city softening around our edges like well-worn leather. By 2030. At 37. I traded full shifts for co-managing O'Malley's with Maria. The bar a haven for misfits beta mixers. Alpha Omega support nights. Luca's after-school haunt where he'd help with non-alcoholic specials. His Omega sparkle drawing crowds. Alex. 40. Helm of a Hale evolved. Balanced boardrooms with fatherhood. Ruts now preludes to Tinder nights where I'd tease him mercilessly before yielding. Challenges came. As they do, Luca's first heat at 12. A whirlwind of scents and sobs we navigated with doctors and hugs. My beta calmed the steady hand to Alex's vigilant alpha. Schoolyard taunts about two dads. No mom, met with our united front story times on Love Spectrum. Abuela's tales of chosen families. Victoria's passing that winter hit hard. Her will a surprise, the estate to Luca. With clauses for our unconventional strength. Eulogy at the cathedral. Alex's voice steady. She learned late. But loved deep. Grief bonded us closer. A trip to the Catskills, Luca splashing in streams. Us reclaiming our honeymoon cabin. Evenings by the fire. Story shared. His hand in mine a constant. Luca grew. Navigating teen tempests, a crush on a beta classmate. Heats managed with grace. College bound for arts like Lila's beau. Pride swelled at his graduation. Our seats front row. Tears unashamed. Empty nest loomed. But we filled it. Travels to Abuela's homeland. Mexico's sunsets painting us golden. Volunteering at shelters. Echoing our start. Anniversaries marked with whiskey toasts. Tattoos refreshed his S beside my A. Ink of endurance. One crisp fall eve. 20 years since that stormy door swing. We returned to O'Malley's. Luca attended bar now. Grin wide as he poured our ritual. To bitter beginnings. Alex toasted. Eyes on me. Love undimmed. To sweet endings. I countered. Clinking glasses. The hook of our story complete not in forgetting, but in forging something eternal. In the end, it wasn't the alphas or omegas that defined us, but the bitter truth we chose, love as rebellion, as home, as the knot that held without biology's chains. And in that, we found me and Inga legacy not of blood, but of unbreakable hearts.